to another video. I'm Crafty Olga, and sir, you want in or out? This is Zeus. He's my dog. I've been sick all week, and today is the first day where I'm feeling a little bit better, and I'm not sitting all day on the sofa with him, so he's feeling a little bad about it. So, hi. This week we're going to be making the blazer for the Hogwarts Legacy inspired uniform. This is like my take on what I think I would like to wear, I guess, as a uniform if I was at Hogwarts in the 40s, and particularly a Hufflepuff uniform, as you'll see. So we've made the blouse, we've made the skirt, and we made the waistcoat, so now it's the final piece of the three-piece suit. So this is the fourth episode in the series, but it's not the last one. That's coming next week because I had some really fun ideas for accessories on how to really elevate this look and make it like more witchy, more like something you would see maybe in the game. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that. For the pattern, I used Burda 120 from the September 2019 issue, and it is like a little suit that was a pencil skirt and this blazer. Same as for the other pieces in this suit, I used the Minerva range polyester suiting in the color gold. Without further ado, I'm gonna let voiceover Olga take over and explain to you the adventure that was making this blazer.
So I started off with laying my fabric with right sides together and getting all of my pattern pieces out. So I had to figure out what I needed to cut from what, because obviously there's a lining, there's like facing pieces, there's quite a bit that goes on with making any kind of structured jacket, coat, that kind of thing. So I figured out what needed to be cut on the fold and all of that, and started pinning things down. Once I had successfully puzzled out how to place everything, I started cutting, and the way I did this was I actually sort of cut at the point where I didn't, the amount of fabric that I needed that was pinned down, and then I rolled it up gently and sat down on my desk and started unrolling slowly and cutting the pieces out. And I also was marking and as I went, so I would cut out a piece, mark it, and then move on to cutting the next piece. So far, I only have footage of me cutting the actual like blazer pieces or jacket pieces, I guess. And today I've been cutting my lining. The pattern told me that I needed about 1.30 m for my lining. I also wanted to make the waistcoat with a matching lining. The lining that I'm using for this and the waistcoat, as you know, is the same fabric that I used for the blouse. And I went to the market where I first originally bought the fabric for the blouse. So what I had left over was about like a 1/2 meter. So I thought, okay, I'll get 1.5 meters just to be on the safe side. But I have a ton of fabric left over. Like I used, if that much, 1 meter of fabric for both things. But I'm quite surprised at how much I have left over. So I might make another blouse, like a summer blouse. I just cut my interfacing, and I've been sticking it onto my pieces. I don't know, it sort of looks like an elephant, but also sort of like a lamb leg, I don't know, like a mutton leg. I am gonna go ahead and stitch mark all of these. Yeah, if I'm making things that are really structured, I like to stitch mark just so I know where everything is, and I also really like stitch marking for things that I haven't made before. So yeah, I have quite a bit of work ahead of me. I think pretty much every single piece on this jacket has a dart. It's really weird because I think it's like princess seams, and also there's a enormity of darts, so I don't really know what I would call this, but I'm really excited to see it come together. So at this point, I started pinning the darts while I went ahead and stitch marked. So I did a double, double thing, double feature, if you will. So you already have seen me make darts before in other videos. If you haven't, though, what I do is I will pin my dart flat. So I run the pin through from one side, from one line to the other, and then I pinch it and close the dart, and that is just the best method I have found so far for me. There's lots of different methods. You can use whatever you like, but that's just how I make darts or how I pin them. And for stitch marking, it's basically like just basting stitches. So you're just running a needle through the lines that you marked with your pen, or like the, lines that are marked on the pattern. And I'm just transferring those lines so that I can press this as at will, however much I need to, at whatever points without losing the markings. And I don't have to use water soluble pens, which then mean I have to wash this, and seeing as it's a blazer, I'm probably not going to wash it a whole ton. So yeah, this is just a method, again, not a right or wrong one. But what I usually do, so I'll mark it all with a heat erasable pen, and then if I'm transferring any markings to stitch marking, I'll do that, or like tailor's tacks or whatever. Otherwise, I'll just, keep on going. I normally never transfer these markings, or like I never stitch mark darts, because I find that it's a waste of time. It's the first thing I do anyway, so I will do it in this very select situations, but this was not one of them. As you know, if you've ever followed a Burda pattern, yeah, this is the bit where you then try to puzzle out what the hell they want you to do. I went ahead and did all of my darts. I stitched them and did all that like I always do, and then I'm just pressing them really quickly. But then I try to figure out what my next step is. So we have one main big piece for the front, which is this really weirdly shaped one that has the collar and all that. So that gets pinned to this more typical bodice princess seam piece. But you do have to gather the front piece to make it fit. So that obviously takes a little finagling, as always with gathering, and you have to like ease it in properly and all of that. So that's what I'm doing here, pinning that in place, and trying to trust the process a little bit, because this looked a bit weird when I was making it. After I stitched it down, I went ahead and pressed the seams open, and I also gave this a little clipping just to make sure that there was a little bit less bulk in my seams. So I'm not finishing the seams, obviously, because this whole thing is going to be lined, so there's no really point in it. Just clipping and pressing, really, and that is it. So then I have to stitch in the lining of the pocket. This is going to be the kind of curved bit at the bottom of the front piece. Turns out it's not just a style line, it's actually a pocket. I was as surprised as you are. And turns out the pocket's a little bit small, so it's not super functional. Like, I can't really fit my phone in it, but it's nice to put your hands in, so it's just a nice touch. Anyway, so we're going to stitch around the curved bit, and the straight edge is going to remain free. Then the pocket gets flipped to the right side, so as you can see here, it looks a bit more like lined. I don't know, like this section is lined. So this isn't actually the pocket. This is like one part of the pocket, and then it's really hard to explain. And then we're gonna stitch more things on, and but we just need this bit to be lined by that point, I guess. So yeah, this just gets flipped right side out and pressed. Obviously I clipped my curves before I flipped it right side out, but yeah, that's it. And then it's time for our first peplum piece to make an appearance. I'm not sure if this is a real peplum or not. I'm going to call it peplum and bodice or jacket, just so it's easier for us to distinguish between what the hell is going on here. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how this goes together, because I'm currently very confused. So I'm just trying to figure out how this is going to sit so that I know where I'm stitching it. And that's just a good rule of thumb with Burda. So I figured out that, I want my, what are these called? My darts to line up, and I can figure out where it went. And actually for this I don't usually do this. I usually press all my darts in one go. But this time there were so many darts that I decided to just press them as I needed them, because, yeah, it was gonna be a while. And then I went ahead and lined up my darts so that they looked really nice and neat, and it looked like it was a continuous line. And I pinned that in place sort of as the pattern told me to, or kind of like how I figured it would be the best way to do that, which is it goes kind of behind the pocket. So this is then going to create a pocket opening, if that makes sense. You'll see how it comes together in a bit. On the peplum bits, there's actually a line, which we stitch marked in before, that shows you where the pocket sort of rounded edge should be. And then we're gonna go ahead and stitch the straight edges of the peplum to the straight edge of the lining of the pocket. Yeah, I also, obviously, before I did that, I pressed my seams and all of that, but yeah, so this line here of the pocket on the outside needs to be over the stitch marked line, which you can tell that I'm here just trying to make sure that it's all, you know, falling where it needs to be, and then flipping it over and finding those straight edges to stitch those together. Once I figured that out, I went ahead and put it over myself, kind of where I figured it would go, and put my hand in the pocket to see how big of an opening I wanted. Then I marked that with a pin, because now we're going to be stitching this down by hand to close this, and obviously there's going to be a hem and all of that, so this is going to be encased later. So I don't remember if it's a slip stitch or a basting stitch at this point, but yeah, we're gonna close that temporarily. Actually, I can tell you now from this footage, it is a slip stitch, so I'm not really sure why they had a slip stitch it at this point. It could have just been a basting stitch, and then we could have come back and done a proper slip stitch later. But anyway, I did it how they told me and try to make it as invisible as possible. Then I started working on the back, and for some reason they had us add some gathering stitches at the shoulder, which I'll talk about this more later. I don't get what the hell that's about. But anyway, so we have to join the center back seam, which is just a straight seam. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stitch that, and then press my seams open. Then for the side backs, we have a peplum piece with a dart and a top piece, or like a bodice piece with a dart also. So I went ahead and stitched those together, matching the dart so that it looked really nice and neat and like a straight line. And then I joined the side backs to the back pieces, try to, you know, match. This is kind of like a princess seam, and I'm starting to, actually watching this back, realize that the princess seams are purely stylistic lines, and they serve no or not that much shaping purpose, because there are just so many darts and gathers in this. So I'm starting to think that the seams are very stylistic. Like even the back seam, like the center back seam, is probably a stylistic choice, because we could have realistically just cut that on the fold, and it would have saved us stitching that down. The other option is that we need both the darts and the princess seams to really create a very voluminous, or yeah, voluminous, whatever how you say it, like hip area, because this does feel like it's not tight at the waist. Like it's a little bit tight on me because I should probably have sized up, which I'll get into later, but it creates this very like cinched waist look that isn't really how it feels. So maybe that's why we need all of these, all of this shaping. I don't know. I'm not really very good at pattern drafting, or like good at it at all. Like I don't know enough about it to really have a say in it, but it just, yeah. So while I was sewing it, I felt like is this really necessary? But actually thinking about it, maybe there is a reason for the madness. I don't know. And you know, the jacket's starting to look good. It's starting to take shape. So I'm very confident at this point that I know what I'm doing. So I pinned the back, or like the tops of the, I don't even know, the collar of the front pieces. There's like an L-shaped seam, and I thought, well, I'll just stitch that together, you know? And I was only half wrong, so that's good, I guess. So at this point, I should have stopped stitching, but I went ahead and stitched that bit down like the L shape, and I shouldn't have done that bit. So after some reading and rereading of the instructions and some unpicking, I figured out that my next step was to stitch together the shoulder seams, and also I went ahead and stitched the side seams together too, because that was the next step naturally. And made sure I matched my seams and things like that. I want to show you how far we've gotten with our blazer. This is what we've got so far. We pretty much have the shell of the blazer done. I really like the pocket detail. I'm not sure, like I hand stitched it down, but I don't understand how that's all gonna work, but I guess we'll see. Then obviously we have our beautiful collar. So I figured out how to stitch on the back. So I was struggling because initially I stitched this down because it was like an L shape. So I initially stitched the whole thing down, but turns out that wasn't what I was supposed to do. What I was supposed to do was stitch the shoulder seams down and then stitch just this seam together and then attach the other bit of the collar to the neckline so it falls like this. I did figure out how to do that from the pattern, but yeah. The only thing so far that I am not a fan of is that I don't understand why they had us do gathers, like why this is supposed to be gathered at the shoulder. Like it's not going to be visible, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But I don't understand why they had us make like 7 million darts and then this is a gather. Why is this a gather? It's so weird, especially because it would be a really small dart. And the gathers, it's enough that you have to gather it, but not so much that it actually looks like has that nice gathered effect. So it just looks like I messed up. I love the fit of this. It looks really beautiful. It is a little bit tight on me. So when I first copied down this pattern, I copied down a size 36, and I think that I would probably fit a size 38 better, or size 10, I guess. What I thought was, okay, when I sit down to make this, I will just do less seam allowance. I do find that Burda patterns tend to be a little bit big on me. Go down a little bit on the amount of seam allowance that I have, and that will just kind of split the difference between going a size up and like having to scale that down because things are usually too big on me. However, I forgot to do that. So it just came out too big. Anyway, moving on to the sleeves. You put the sleeve together. There's two pieces to the sleeve. So there's there's two pieces to the sleeve. You have to put it together. And so that was actually it came together pretty easily. It's just a sleeve. It's not that complicated. And I mean, obviously if it's your first two-piece sleeve, then it might be a little bit complicated, but it's not my first two-piece sleeve, so it's probably not even my first two-piece sleeve this month. So I did that, and then we have to set in the sleeves on the jacket, which again, you just kind of set them in. You have to ease in the gathered, or like ease the sleeve in, which I hate doing. I find it requires more patience than I have. And honestly, I love a gathered sleeve. Like I love adding gather to the shoulder just to add more puff and like volume. So that's what I ended up doing, and I think it looks super cute. At this point, the pattern had us try on the blazer to make sure that we got the right length of sleeve. So I tested it out, looked at how big I wanted the sleeve to be on my arms, and then I marked that and pressed in the seam allowance that I needed. And I then went ahead and stitched that down by hand as the pattern told me to. Now it's time to repeat all that with the lining. So it's just a lot of doing the same thing. And as you can tell from this footage, I worked into the evening because I really was starting to see like the vision come together, and I was really excited to put it together. The only thing I have to note about the lining layer is really that the pattern had a misprint, and so they didn't tell us to cut sleeves. And that's one of the reasons why I had so much leftover fabric at the beginning. I still have it a lot, but that's fine. But yeah, so you get to a point where you're like, well, I need sleeves now. So I checked the pattern and it was like, oh, so in your sleeve lining. And I was like, but what sleeve lining? You didn't tell me to cut sleeves. So I went back to the list of everything you need to cut out, and lo and behold, they did not put sleeves in the lining. So anyway, I went back, cut some, and, you know, put the sleeves together and then attach them to the lining so that I could move on to attaching my lining to my outer jacket. The other interesting thing to note for this pattern is that you don't actually sew the facing to the lining. You sew the facing to the jacket and then you sew the lining to the facing, if that makes sense, which I thought was interesting because like different patterns will have you do this different ways. So yeah, this bit was okay, like adding the front facing to the jacket. This was okay, just a lot of clipping as you can see here. What was a struggle was the back neck facing. That really, that almost broke me, I have to say. And I apologize because the footage of me doing this is absolutely terrible, but the truth is that I started getting so stressed out. I read and reread the pattern instructions so many times. I was very confused. So I kind of just went rogue. Like you can see I'm adding my tag just to like because I was procrastinating doing this. So I'm just adding my tag and a little bit of ribbon so I could hang up my blazer. Like it was a cute idea actually. I'm happy I did it. But clearly this idea came from just like me procrastinating this. And I ended up just going, you know what, I'm just going to do this my way and how I think it should be done. And then we'll see how this looks at the end. And I have to say, it doesn't look, it's like not the best facing I've ever stitched down. I kind of decided to just get on with it because I wanted to finish the blazer. I didn't think I was going to do a much better job. So we're doing a pretty simple lining structure here, I guess. I don't know if I would call it a lining structure. Anyway, we're going to stitch this down. Still going to have to battle with that neck facing, but, you know, we're going to make it work. Anyway, so I'm stitching it down to the facing on the sides, so like those straight edges that go up the front bits, and then around the neck and down the other side. And after giving that a really good press, I'm going to go ahead and pull my sleeve linings into my sleeves, and I'm going to press up the seam allowance a bit more than what I did for the fashion fabric. And this is so that it will be shorter on the inside. And yeah, like folds a little bit. There's like a method, I don't know what this is called, but this is like a thing that you do for blazers and jackets and coats and things. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and pin those two together at the cuff and stitch it down by hand, and then move on for the next step, which is going to be pressing up the seam allowance on the hem of the fashion fabric and then also on the lining. So basically you can just go round and round. And I'm just pressing that. I think 1.5 centimeters is the seam allowance on this. I actually really wish I had a clapper for this fabric, because this is one of those fabrics that has the like great thing of not creasing that much when you're wearing it, which means it's not that, like, it doesn't press that well. But anyway, once you have that all pressed up, you're going to, or once I had that pressed up, I went ahead and pinned those two layers together. And then, yes, we are going to be sewing this by hand. But I actually really like the finishing on this jacket, and I'm really, like, I think it looks really good. So then I went ahead and marked my buttonholes and stitched those down by machine. And I added my buttons by hand, and then I'm ready to show you the reveal.
yeah, I want to talk a little bit about what happened with this blazer. So at the time when I filmed the reveal, I kind of I thought like, oh yeah, it's a little bit tight, but I'll just move the buttons over and it'll be fine. And while, yes, I moved the buttons over and it does button up, you can tell that it's tight, and it's more comfortable if I just wear it over like a t-shirt or like a thin blouse. When I'm wearing the 3 layers, it's a little bit uncomfortable. But the more I wore it and like look back at photos of me wearing it, the more I can tell that there are some fit issues that are coming from the fact that it's tight. So there's some weird like lines at the kind of like from the shoulder to the arm side, that, and obviously the tightness that I feel. Like the fit of this, obviously it doesn't fit me, but the design and like the style lines and stuff of this jacket is so good. Okay. Now I'm covered in black hair. Sorry about that. If you have a clingy dog or like a dog that's attached to you at the hip like mine is, yeah, you'll know what that feels like. But I do feel like if I sized up, and I really kick myself at this, I still really love the blazer and I still have worn it like on my, like in my daily life since I've made it, which is a great sign of how much I love this pattern. I just think that if I had taken the time to size up the pattern, I like could have saved up myself a lot of grief. Having said that, I do think that a lot of making Burda patterns, especially the ones that are from the magazines, like it's always going to be a bit of grief because you don't understand half of what their instructions are. I do try to follow the instructions as much as possible, especially when I'm making something I've never made before and there's all these like weird pieces that I'm not 100% sure how they want me to put it together. Like I know how I would do it, which is kind of what I ended up doing. Even if you then go rogue and do things differently, it's important to read the instructions so you know like kind of how the garment is constructed and what the idea behind those seam lines and those darts and whatever the ideas behind those things are. And then that will help you know where you can maybe change a hemming technique, or maybe you can finish a seam in a different way, or maybe you can, you know, sew the sleeves in later because it doesn't really matter, but sometimes it does matter. When I do something for the first time, I really like to make the whole thing exactly how the instructions tell me, or as close to that as possible, because I've never put that garment together before. I don't know what it is, how it's expected to come together. And I feel like the fact that I have a lot of experience now does help with like the hurdles that come from trying to follow a Burda pattern, but it always comes with a lot of like, I don't know what this means, I don't know what you want me to do, I don't understand. Anyway, obviously I have a lot of notes on the pattern. So I love the pocket detail. I think it really surprised me that that was a pocket. I did not realize there was a pocket there, and I'm really happy there is. It's really sweet. And I think that the shape of the jacket and the fit, like I said before, are absolutely beautiful. And I think if you make it in your right size, this is a really beautiful, like fitted, such a beautiful silhouette. Really, really love this. I actually found the construction of this jacket okay. It wasn't too hard until we got to that back facing. That was stressful. I did not enjoy that. I'm like 99% sure I didn't do it right. I also like kind of forgot about the shoulder pads. I had more space this way because obviously with the shoulder pads that would have been way too tight. So yeah, the last thing I want to note is that there's a reason that lining fabrics are super slippery and very thin. And it's because lining a jacket with poplin isn't the best idea I've ever had. Obviously, I feel like it goes with the theme. It ticks off the box in my mind of like the aesthetic, and I think that that is the only reason why I don't absolutely hate it. It's okay if I'm wearing like a slippery kind of thing, like if I'm wearing something that is a bit more slippery, or like it's on my bare skin, it's fine. But if I'm wearing it against another poplin, then it becomes very hard to take off and put on. I feel like this, at the end of the day, became kind of a wearable mock-up because there are so many things that I want to change about it, but I still really, really want to make this jacket. Like, I want to figure out the perfect fit for this jacket and make it because I love it so much. I actually am really happy with how it looks and the kind of aesthetic of it, so I do think that maybe the full outfit is going to be reserved for cons. I do wear all of the pieces a lot, even if not all together at once. I'm really excited to bring you the final video of this series next week. So make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss new videos from me. And you can also consider following me on Instagram or on the Minerva.com website. This fabric was gifted to me for free by Minerva as part of the Minerva Brand Ambassador program, where I get fabric in exchange for posting about it on their website. And I do get to make whatever I want with it, I just have to post about it. So if you want to see all of the things that I'm posting on their website, definitely follow the link in my description to check that out. It's pretty much like Instagram, but for just sewing, which is really cool. Everything is linked below as always. I also have gone ahead and linked all of the fabric and all of anything that I use that I can link you to. I think that's everything for me for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.